Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flux, and it's been a while, guys. It's been a while because I went on vacation. But before I went on vacation, my computer died in the last week of December, which really sucks because I had banked so many reviews, just ever so many, so that you would not be a couple of days without me into the new year. And the plan was that I was going to get back on the day that Oscar nominations were announced, and even though that ended up being the case, it didn't ultimately matter because my computer had died. I didn't get a chance to take it in and get it fixed until deep into the end of January, and when I did, it was unsalvageable. It was just too old of a computer, and for my needs it wasn't going to be able to be fixed, so I had to scrounge up the cash to get a new computer, which I did. So you're going to see a whole bunch of videos, but all of this is really to say that for the next several weeks, you're going to see new, fresh videos of me from Here Now Present Matt to Christmas Decored 2024 Matt videos throughout the next probably month and a half, really. I have a lot of stuff that I had in the bank there. That being said, since we're already talking about an already unfortunate situation, I thought we'd talk about two films that I saw on the plane going to my final destination, and they were not great. Now, I will raise the caveat that seeing a movie on a small little screen in a plane, not the ideal cinematic presentation. That said, I don't think it matters much with either of these films. They are absolutely atrocious. The first one I saw was Borderlands. Borderlands is absolute hot garbage. There's nothing good to really talk about. It is an explosive mess of vibrance, annoying, busy color. It is just sound and picture, and it's awful. I was asked by somebody when I was telling them this, like, surely there had to be something good about the movie. What's the best thing I can say about Borderlands? And this is the best thing I can say about Borderlands. My favorite color is orange, and there's an awful lot of orange in Borderlands. And that's the highest I can go. The second highest is that it was, having never played the game, Jack Black didn't altogether bother me. When he showed up, I was like, okay. And he does a good, committed job for what I think that character needed within this film. And then the third one that I will give as a slight positive is, even though they immediately make a joke at his expense, Kevin Hart gives a pretty dramatic performance, and I was sort of surprised that he wasn't like the funny one. That's it. That's all I got. Borderlands is absolute garbage. It's a hot mess. From what I understand, is a terrible adaptation of the video game, which I thought this movie was going to be kind of a big hit when it came out in August because everybody loves Borderlands, or so I was under the impression. It turns out people loved it like 10 years ago and has since cooled, and certainly cooled to all the decisions made with this film. My understanding is that, like, Cate Blanchett's character is supposed to be like in her early 20s in the game, and then they cast Cate Blanchett, who's a tremendous actress, but not in her early 20s, and they kind of repeat this over and over again throughout, including with like the Kevin Hart character and the robot Jack Black. My understanding is if you're a fan of the video game, you're going to absolutely despise it, and if you're not a fan of the video game like me, you're going to despise yourself for having contemplated even watching it. It was so bad that I had to stop the film at the midpoint just to take a breather from it, and the breather I took was watching The Crow remake. Now, maybe it's because I was comparing it to the cinematic sphincter fart that is Borderlands, but I didn't think The Crow was altogether as awful as I was kind of expecting it to be based on the trailer. And that's the highest praise I'm going to give it, because I do think it is the second worst movie of last year, only to Borderlands. It is awful. It is not only a terrible remake of a great prior movie or a phenomenal comic book, it is just altogether bad for kind of taking all the things you want to see and just not doing them with an actor that you really like, and it's just perplexing. The fact that this is the worst Crow movie says a fucking lot, because I don't know if you've seen the Crow sequels. They are not particularly good. I think, personally, City of Angels is the worst of the Crow pantheon prior to this movie. But the difference between this movie and that movie is gorgeous. If you mute it, you can watch the beautiful exercise in lighting and moody painting with a cinema frame that is Crow City of Angels. This is similar to that in that, like, everything about it sucks, but also visually it is just the worst. There is nothing going on in a cinematic lens that is interesting in the film. And then you have the character of Eric Draven that they go way out of their way to make sure that he's not comparable to the amazing Brandon Lee performance. But I think people kind of want that from The Crow. He is so ingrained in The Crow, and he was so amazing in that role that I get why you'd want to kind of distance it, but to go to this extent where, like, he looks like he could be a dude that's hanging out with, like, Jared Leto's Joker is just no. And then they make him so unlikable and so not committed to the whole Crow thing. He's, like, brought back to be the Crow so he can avenge his girl, but then he's like, when confronted with that information, is like, did I really love her? Is this really where I'm going? And then, like, you're like, wait, what? I don't know who wrote this, or it was the least undercooked thing I've ever experienced. It's so bad. It's just, it makes me mad. And by the end of it, I was like, well, surely this is the worst movie of the year. I'm going back to finish Borderlands because it can't be as bad as The Crow. No, it can. It was just as bad as The Crow, if not just, like, a little bit worse. I hate these movies. They're not good. Please stop. Borderlands, on paper, should have worked, and it feels like a film of corporate meddling, right? Like, hiring Eli Roth to make a Borderlands movie makes sense. He can be a good filmmaker. That was established a couple years back with Thanksgiving, or a couple of other things that he's had his fingers in. But he sounds on paper like the guy you hire to do that if you're trying to do a ripoff of like Deadpool or Suicide Squad. In the video game landscape, because he has that edge to him. He has no problem going violent, but then the studio's like, well, we can't have violence in this. What are you talking about? We hired him for the prestige of the Roth name, and then they didn't let him Eli Roth, and it just feels so much like a Suicide Squad, and the bad Suicide Squad, not the James Gunn one. It's an unwatchable mess with so many people that I absolutely love and adore as in front of the camera, and it's just, I don't get it, man. And then The Crow, again, corporate meddling. I feel like it was like a bunch of willful decisions. How can we make Eric Draven not resemble the Brandon Lee performance that everybody's familiar with? Let's give it a completely different aesthetic and stuff like that. Let's change it up, make the story not necessarily the same. But if you really wanted to do that, that already exists in the comic book. Like, The Crow is a good movie that is similar to, but pretty dissociated from, the comic book. Why didn't you just do the comic book? It's good. It's really good. Like, I like that better than the old Crow movie. And you can get your organic switch-ups that way. And even if you want to cast Bill Skarsgård, sure. But I don't think going entirely away from the Crow look that Brandon Lee possessed is going to dissociate your thing. It will certainly visually, but that's the thing that all the Crow movies kind of share, with the exception of the third one. And I don't know. I didn't like these, and I'm rambling, so I'm gonna stop. Let me know what you thought of Borderlands or the Crow remake. I've talked to a couple of people that were like, the Crow's not that bad, and I'm like, I don't see how you can come to that conclusion. It is awful. It is terrible. Easily last year's worst comic book movie. I know there was like none that came out last year, but oh man, did that take the cake. And that's not an easy feat, because it had to surpass Joker Folie à Deux for being the worst movie of both of last year, as well as comic book wise, and Crow did it, so it's a champion, but not as bad as Borderlands. Woof. Rage is simmering and threatening to boil. So we are going to hop off. Now, I will have a whole bunch of reviews coming up for you over the next couple of days and weeks. Let me know what you think of these films. Follow me on TikTok. I should be a little more active there. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.